One ordinary evening in a densely populated megalopolis, a huge crack appeared right in the middle of the sky, and people observed a strange blue glow coming out of that crack in the sky. This bright blue light quickly spread throughout the world, and the people called it mana. Only a small part of the inhabitants of the planet, who had a special susceptibility to mana, received special opportunities and abilities due to this light. People began to call such special inhabitants of the planet awakened, but suddenly the flow of mana from the sky dried up, but the crack in the sky persisted. Many people had gotten used to the fact that there was this crack in the sky and had stopped paying any attention to it. But suddenly, all over the world, portals began to appear again, through which the blue color seeped out. But this time something very strange and sinister happened. As if out of nowhere, a stream of blue light replaced the red color, and scary big monsters began to appear outside. The people nicknamed such openings gates. Terror and fear gripped the inhabitants of the planet, because an endless stream of these monsters came out, scaring everyone around. Panic and chaos engulfed the entire population of the city, but among this frightened crowd there was one hero who was not afraid to make a challenge to these terrible monsters. And from that moment on, there was a cataclysm in the world. I thought that once I became awake and aware, everything would change. I just didn't want to work my ass off anymore. Seeing nothing happen, it's not what I dreamed of. I certainly never wanted to fall in this unequal battle oppressed and defeated. But now I have superpowers, and I have to protect this planet and my loved ones. In the next moment, an incredibly powerful throw releases a razor-sharp dagger from our hero's hands, which unfortunately bounces off the huge ice monster, and does it no harm. From such insolence, the monster is very angry and prepared to deliver his crushing blow. His throw was so powerful that it took an incredible effort just to stay on his feet. In the next second, the monster managed to knock our hero down, and falling into a huge abyss, a flood of new thoughts swept over him. I just wanted to be a friend to someone, meaningful in this life. But it seems like I'm just a useless D-rank maker. Everyone laughed at me if I introduced myself as a hunter. And after all the long days of battles and battles, I knew my life would end like this someday. I just knew it, that's all. It seems that even the monster understood my thoughts and no longer cared about me. He lost all interest in me. The ignominious death of an unrecognized hero. No, it's too soon for me to leave this world. I'm not done, and I'm not done yet. The ice monster came to life again to destroy our hero with its last powerful strike. But in the next instant, our hero's train of thought made it possible to create countless mana swords that attacked the ice monster and felled it to the ground. No, I don't want to end up like this, just like a normal D-rank support with a maker weapon creation class. If only I could become stronger, I could change everything then. The next instant, a notification popped up in front of the hero. He was informed that he had met all the preliminary prerequisites to become a player. A new system notification appeared in front of him. Welcome, Shin player. We see someone hurrying and rushing somewhere, running as fast as he can. Making his way through the thick forest, past the interfering branches. He wants not to be late and to be on time for this important meeting. It's such an important day, and he can't be late today. There he is, the girl said with relief in her voice. Next to her, wearing armor, sat on a tree stump a serious-looking young man who was not surprised at the newcomer's lateness for such an important event. This is Kim Jimin and Lim Duan, from the Dawin Guild. Our hero, barely out of breath, apologized to his friends for being a little late. This is Shin, our main character. The girl and the knight in armor were not too upset, and cheered up their friend, patted him on the shoulder and said that he was not too late. It's all right, we can go inside, they are waiting for us, said the girl. Our hero smiled with relief and said okay. Although inside, he couldn't stop criticizing himself for being late. He has been a member of this guild for 3 months now, and this is his first battle raid. But he was late. The heroes prepared to enter the portal. Determined to show himself at his best, our hero stepped forward. He told himself he had to prove he was the best. Inside, he was met by a fellow guild member who realized that for our hero, this is the first raid because he is very excited. This is Moon, B-rank hunter, Dawin Guild's guildmaster and Dawin Guild's close-range dealer. Shin didn't immediately find something to say, a little confused. He had been in dungeons as a helper a few times before. A helper doesn't have the ability to fight as effectively as hunters, so they need to be more careful where they are. It's very easy to get into a fight if you're close, and if you're far away you can get hurt because no one can protect you. So the best option is to keep a safe distance, and it's also important to listen to what your fellow guild members are saying, to pay close attention to the signals they give. It seems simple, doesn't it? It really is, agreed our protagonist. Shin is a little worried because he doesn't have any additional weapons, but his colleague calmed him down and told him who has nothing to worry about because this is a very simple dungeon and a first for our hero. At that moment, one of the team members felt mana flows. That's right, there is a monster here. This is coming from Lee, C-rank hunter. The leader of the group gave the command that everyone should prepare for battle and form a fighting order. Lim asked his friend in arms if there were any particular manifestations of this monster's presence. The latter answered him that he sees 3 small mana and 1 large mana, so that's plenty to say that there's a really big monster there. Very strange, thought the group leader, because usually these places don't have such large monsters. Attention, everyone get ready for battle. I'll take the main boss, you take care of the others. The groups ask our hero how long it takes to make a dagger, and he tells them, about 20 seconds if you hurry. But that's only about a minute and a half. That's enough time, says our group leader, and he asks our hero to start making daggers. The next second, a pack of small but very angry monsters with sharp teeth and long claws washed towards our group. Their appearance and behavior changes depending on what mana stones they have consumed. These are the monsters that live and grow in dungeons thanks to mana stones. Our group is ready to attack and rushes into battle with enthusiasm. One of the warriors raises his shield high into the sky and smashes it with all his might against the ground right in front of the monsters. The impact was so strong that the earth shook from the vibration, and many monsters flew apart. Now it was our girl's turn to demonstrate her fighting ability. Her fist jerked forward to deliver the first blow. With tremendous power, her fist flies straight at the big monster's head. She also manages to do a somersault and land behind the monster while it is still flying in the air, defeated by the impact. One by one, the monsters continue to attack them. The girl notes that these monsters are quite fast, dodging not what she would expect. She warns her colleague that 2 monsters are approaching him. The shield fighter commands that he needs additional magic, then one of the group members prepares to create it. In the next instant, huge streams of fire energy straight from the group member's hand, illuminating the entire dungeon around with a bright and yellow light. Fiery explosions and balls of flame fill the space around our group. Our heroes are elated, and with a slight smile they note that everything went well. The protagonist sees how effective the team is and understands how the guild operates in real combat. He's almost ready to make his own weapon, so the daggers are ready. He is told not to get distracted because there is no time for that, and to concentrate on creating the daggers. The quality of the daggers depends on how high the mana level of the user who creates them is. Hold the dagger, says our hero to one of the warriors, and the next second he rushes forward to strike the monster. With the help of his special features, he transforms the weapon into a new kind, the quality of which depends on the user's mana level. After a while, this weapon disappears. The huge maw of the snarling monster passes right next to our hero's hand. At that very second, a strong swing of the arm destroys the monster. The monster's head falls to the ground, and the weapon immediately disappears. The leader of the group asks his friends if everyone is okay or if anyone is hurt. The protagonist realizes that this guild is even better than he thought it was, and that each of the warriors individually is beautiful. But together they create an incredibly powerful force. Their work is flawless. He notes how efficiently they fight, and that one day they will become the best guild. The question is only in the additional battles, the inner criticism awakens again our hero, that in comparison to them he is just a pathetic creator of weapons. He regrets that he was only able to create 1 dagger, and that he was constantly distracted. Does he deserve to be on the same team with them? The next second his flow is interrupted by words of praise from one of the group members, who says he did a great job. Our protagonist confesses to him what he thinks of himself. Supposedly he was ineffective in this battle. His colleague looks puzzled. He tells him that he was able to save a lot of money with his daggers. He explains to him that even if he had had the opportunity, he would not have been able to afford such a weapon. But thanks to the help of our protagonist, he was able to create such a powerful dagger. So that's why they needed a weapon maker on the team. The warrior doesn't hesitate to praise our hero and tells him of a job well done in this dungeon on his first combat trip. Shin replies that he looks forward to the next time, and that he will do the best that he can. So now let's collect all the valuables that are here, says one of the team members. But no sooner have they started packing up after the battle, than the ground begins to shake under their feet. They are frightened, because thanks to the earthquake the dungeon may collapse and they will stay there forever. At that moment they notice that one of the walls had collapsed to form a huge hole. The man with the staff began to check what was going on around them. He explained to them that there is a pattern here and a connection to this place. Maybe it's some kind of secret passage to another place. Some were even excited, thinking it was a secret passageway to new deposits of riches and jewels. What else? This opinion is shared by the warrior girl, who is eager to go inside. The group leader asks if something inside can be recognized and is told that it cannot. A quick analysis is made and a decision is made to move forward. The decision is made and everyone starts moving. Barely containing her emotions, the girl runs ahead of the group, anticipating the jewels. But the next moment, a huge monster appears right in front of them. It was a trap. It was a trap. Everyone turned around and began to scatter to the side. How was this even possible? The protagonist, with terror in his eyes, runs away as fast as he can. Unfortunately, the whole group dies except for him. This monster was not supposed to be in this dungeon. The hero tells himself that he has never heard of such a monster that could not be detected with magic. That's just unbelievable. It continues to chase our hero and is about to catch him off guard. He almost catches him. The monster strikes with incredible force, and the protagonist, as a soccer ball, flies away. He hits the ground with terrible force, and blood flows from his mouth. He orders himself to pull himself together because he doesn't want to die like this. He immediately starts creating daggers to defeat the monster. The daggers are ready, and he launches them into the battle. The first dagger hits the monster in the chest but does not do any damage and bounces away. Now the monster is even more angry, and with all his strength he hits the ground on which the hero is standing, and he falls under the water. While he is still conscious, he thinks about the fact that his life may end like this, and that he was not able to help his team with his abilities. He finally met the very guild that always needed him, but he couldn't show all his abilities. And in the end he is defeated, and couldn't do anything. Probably someone else in his place would have done more. Regret for his sad fate envelops his heart. It was a dream he would never be able to realize. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. It said that he had fulfilled all the prerequisites to become a player. His eyes opened wide in amazement. A bright light flashed all around him. A scream of joy and air bubbles burst from his mouth. New system notification. Welcome, Shin. The protagonist is very much surprised, and a new system notification pops up saying that there is a reward waiting for him, and a question: does he want to check this reward? The choice is yes or no. Being in such a situation underwater, he has no other choice but to press yes. He is completely unaware of what is happening, and after his choice he can step on virtual daggers underwater. He rises to the surface and sees the very monster that is here. New notification. The protagonist is informed that he has the ability to inherit past life experiences. After that, a blue aura forms around his body, but the monster also stares fiercely at the protagonist. Notice, his bounty is fully loaded and ready. A bright flash of blue light illuminates his gaze, and a blue glow appears in his eyes. Then a huge number of balls made of mana fly towards the monster and hit it from all sides. These swords knock the monster to the ground. What just happened? Our hero cannot gather his thoughts. What's going on in my head, he thought. Some new thoughts that weren't there before, memories I never knew I had. As he thought about his new sensations, the monster lunged to attack. A fist flies towards the protagonist, but he blocks this blow by creating a protective shield. The swords don't seem to have done any damage, and the monster is full of strength, attacking again. Even if it is a golem-type monster, it has impressive strength. The protagonist felt the strength to fight this monster. Thanks to his new memories, he realizes that the monster's weaknesses are the same as before, so there is a chance to defeat it. This type of monster has almost no vulnerabilities because it has the ability to regenerate from injuries. If that's true, then this monster only needs to take multiple blows from different directions. The protagonist activates a matrix network around him. Thanks to the structure formed, a multitude of swords struck the monster from different directions. The protagonist gathered all his strength into a fist, and more swords began to strike the monster from all sides. A bright flash illuminated the surroundings, and an explosion erupted, shattering the monster into pieces. Shin breathed a sigh of relief that it was finally over. He had not expected such a quality of attack from his newly acquired abilities, so he was beginning to have more faith in his own strength. A new notice appears. He defeated the boss, but he still can't see the dungeon information or monster information. The data is closed. A strange glow begins to appear over the monster's ruins. New message again. New ability level activated. Magic absorption. A small-sized sphere appears on his hand. He has no idea what it is. Okay, we need to figure out what just happened, he says to himself. A new notification appears, saying that he is inheriting an experience from last time. What last time exactly? He doesn't understand it. This is some other self from the future, he says to himself. In this future, the whole world has fallen. It doesn't exist. Things have happened that are so terrible it's better not to talk about them. And yet he's been able to gain all this experience and knowledge. Well, even if it is the future, it's probably not the future I'm in now. A lot of different variables and things that all depend on. Status tells him that he can't still see some things from his past life. So really he has become a real player, a term that only a select few of the awakened, that is, a very small number of people, could be called players. According to his memories at that time, players didn't exist yet. 2 years ago, only a handful of select few had been chosen to be called players. The blue notification screen was only shown to those who were chosen, and such a new thing called the system came as a shock to many. But that wasn't all that was gained. Something else went to them besides that. Each player received a different reward. They got powers and abilities parallel to what they had as awakened. The system itself and the rewards came out of nowhere, and because of this, many players were able to develop faster compared to the rest of the awakened. All thanks to the work of the guild leader who was chosen as a player. The Devon Guild. A guild that I was a member of, and was able to help it become a first-class guild. I had nothing to do with it directly, but it was a kind of catalyst for my growth in my past incarnation. Now I can check abilities through a special system window. I didn't think it was that convenient before. It seems that our abilities had an accumulative current, because in past incarnations I didn't possess such power. It's possible that this new reward is only given to me. The ability to absorb magic, the ability to store energy in dungeons. Okay, that's a lot of stuff. I'll think about it later. My poor guild members, they are crushed by the monster's crushing blow. Now you need to take care of the affairs of your guild members. Association headquarters. 2 office workers were discussing among themselves about what happened to one of the employees in the dungeon. This is very strange. A guild that was small in size attacked an unconfirmed dungeon, and they had an incident. 4 out of 5 people died. Only 1 survived, which was D-rank supporter. The boss is surprised by the behavior of this hero because usually in similar situations someone runs away leaving his colleagues in trouble. But in this situation, he was even able to take care of the fallen warriors. Unfortunately, Gate has already disappeared, so there's no way to get more information. The girl suggested that he was able to do something terrible by killing one of his fellow guildmates. To which the boss replied that it wasn't a situation that normally happens these days. Even if something strange happens, we can only draw conclusions from the information we receive. The boss tells the girl that this is not a situation that happens all over the place these days. Because hunters disappear in situations like this and don't write a report about it. If they file that report with the association and it goes to auction, all they will get is just a small amount of money, so they prefer to risk their lives and do such raids covertly. After all, it's almost impossible for such a small guild to beat the bids in the auction. Still, call him for further investigation or something, or else I should leave. The girl understands everything perfectly and says goodbye to her leader. While he's walking down the hall, he's thinking about the case. He knows something's wrong. Some gut feeling tells him that there's something wrong. First of all, he felt completely relaxed and at ease when this case was being investigated. He has virtually no experience whatsoever. It wouldn't be strange if he started to panic. There were some gaps in his story, but overall he reported everything clearly. Maybe it's just his typical behavior. I've seen it before. Something's not right, I can feel it. That's why it's frustrating that I can't figure it out. Well, that's not something I need to worry about right now. Meanwhile, our hero was walking down the street and scrolling through the news on his phone. He was looking for something like this. No matter what I think about it, there's something wrong here. This dungeon isn't in my past memories. That said, each of the guild members had checked in on a special form for this gate. There was even an association stamp here. But if it's not registered as an unconfirmed gate from the association, then someone cheated either the association itself or the Darwin Guild. Or maybe the association itself is involved in this case. This all seems very strange, but what I find most disturbing is that it didn't just happen to the Darwin Guild. As the investigator of this case had already told me, cases of missing people were becoming commonplace these days. Almost every guild in the news had a similar case. and each of them included outstanding leaders and players, some of whom would be called heroes in the future. There's definitely someone involved. Someone who wants to erase the very existence of the concept of a hero. All I have to do now is keep my powers well hidden from the public eye. I'm the survivor of this whole missing persons thing. So if I do anything suspicious, I'll be captured immediately. Whether to prepare, I must mobilize every ability and skill I have. I must find a way to develop them further without attracting additional attention. All I have to do is choose the right direction and I'm ready. 1 year later, in the dense thicket of the forest, the sounds of a battle long in progress can be heard. A warrior is fighting another monster. His strong sword strike does no damage. Then the sword breaks in half. The monster does not miss the chance and strikes back, knocking the hero down. With what's left of his sword, he tries to stop himself from pushing further into the depths of the forest. With terror in his eyes, he discovers that this monster is quite powerful. At the same time, the monster leaps up and tries to deliver another powerful blow. Barely dodging, our hero quickly flies away. The whole team is frozen in amazement and daze from what they have seen. The monster is not going to stop. It is only gaining momentum to inflict another damage to our heroes. This is Null Lord, Danger Level D, a high-ranked Null entity. It has physical abilities that exceed those of Naverge Null. The leather of a Null, if not only physically firm, it also reflects, in demand by magic-affiliated hunters. The warrior is surprised to find that a monster of this level can easily defeat anyone in E-rank dungeon. He trembles with fear. In the next second, the monster doesn't let our hero think any further, and strikes again from the side. Another member of the team comes to the rescue, blocking the blow with his powerful shield. Barely holding back the onslaught and pressure of the enemy, he is barely on his feet and ready to fall to the ground. He notes that they won't last that long if the monster continues to deliver such crushing blows. They'll have to try to do something to damage it back. No matter what it takes, he shouted loudly. The death god of low-level hunters. The reason Null Lords are called that isn't just because of their superior physical abilities. Because monsters of that rank or weak to magic, no matter how low-level an adventurer party is, they highly rely on magic. However, Null Lords don't follow that logic. The hunters WHO were confident with just low-ranked magic, faced fear for the first time, and the cost of their impudence and complacency would usually be the annihilation of the party. The warrior notes that he is the only one in the group who could do anything to the monster, but his personal weapon is unfortunately destroyed. Meanwhile, the warrior with the shield can barely hold off the onslaught of the fierce monster. The warrior says to himself that if he had known it was going to be this difficult, he could have brought more men with him for this raid. But he's conserving resources, so there's only a couple people and one mage. What if we ask for help from that man with the pickaxe who's mining gems over there? Wonders internally to our character in the main plan. Helper doesn't participate in the fight itself, but has the role of collecting and transporting byproducts such as magic stones. As long as they have a little mana sensing ability, anyone can do it, so their treatment and recognition among the Awakeners isn't great. Is basically the team's errand boy. Well, we could try to call this guy for help. Why not? We're all about to die, but that guy is just carelessly. Meanwhile, our protagonist has managed to make another blade. Does he have a maker aptitude? I can't expect much for the quality, but still, he says to himself in his mind. He decides to call out to our hero to draw his attention to the general problem of fighting the monster. The hero is distracted from his occupation and turns to look at the one who called him. The warrior hurries over to him and asks in an excited voice if he can make swords. Yes, our hero answers cheerfully and confidently. The warrior asks him to make a very good sword that will withstand multiple blows. I apologize, but I joined as a helper and not a support. Our hero responds. The warrior with a sense of hopelessness says that now is not the best time for such statements because they will all die soon, and that if they can't defeat that monster, he will die too. Our hero sighs and tells the warrior that he has a certain condition. He asks the warrior to forget about everything that he will see after the battle, asks the warrior to forget about the abilities and capabilities of our hero, which he will now demonstrate. He also asks him to pay him the standard rate, so as not to attract unnecessary attention to himself. The warrior in a rage pounces on him with a lot of questions and does not understand what our hero thinks he is. It's even funny, our hero notes. A good weapon is essential to clearing a dungeon like this. I guarantee that as soon as you have this missing element in the current battle, you will immediately make this dungeon clean of any monsters. Well, then be ready for the show, says the protagonist confidently. And now we are transported back to the metropolis, where we see the headquarters of one of the country's leading guilds. We hear the clacking of heels from the confident gait of a beautiful woman on the expensive floor in the reception area of the big boss. A man's voice authorizes her to step inside the luxurious office. This is the guildmaster, and he has received a request for cooperation. A pretty girl informs him. The guildmaster ponders what this request really is, and that those who made such a request to him will pay any price because they have no other choice. There are barely any awakeners. WHO can enter a gate that's been forced closed. The guildmaster is looking at the latest news online and notes to himself that he's seen this face before. A few weeks ago, a dungeon with a ranking error appeared at Seoko-dong. I happened to have been dispatched to the area, so I dropped by the scene. The guildmaster tells us about an incident in the recent past, and he saw our protagonist in that place. But according to the report, the main character was just an aide. Even if more have been appearing, the chances of an error dungeon are still rare, and the rank error dungeons with survivors can be counted on one hand. But this helper participated in a party where everyone survived not once, but twice. This can't be a coincidence. It seems that more and more rank error dungeons have been appearing recently. A few days ago, a D rank dungeon switched into a B rank, and the entire party annihilated instantly. The Awakeners Association must be having a headache. There are a lot of people criticizing the association. Since it's undoubtedly the job of the Awakeners Association to guess, analyze, and announce the ranks of the dungeons, that Ajusi at the association must be suffering right now. Well, those with the trespass skill in our guild are gaining more income. Let's take on additional commissions for a while and just watch the situation. The guildmaster finishes his analysis and gives the girl certain instructions. He continues, "Anyway, what about what I asked you to look into?" To which the girl with red hair replies embarrassed, "I looked into it here and there, but I couldn't find a weapon maker. WHO is A-ranked or higher, but I received a B-ranked weapon from a Japanese blacksmith. Would you like to test it? You know how any weapon below a ranked will get destroyed as soon as I use my skill." To which the guildmaster replies, "Oh well, there are few makers WHO are willing to start with. Keep looking into it for now. I'm reaching my limit of wasting weapons like this," says the man getting up from his chair. "Yeah, I got it," replies the girl. At that time there is a knock on the door and another man enters the office. He reports to the guildmaster that something strange has happened. The stout man in the white shirt continues his report. The dispatch request sent by the association. I checked the location, and it's the D-rank dungeon where some of our newbies entered as a free attack team. Then the guildmaster asks him his question. And what was the measured rank after they entered? The man answers the guildmaster, C rank, and an upper C rank at that. The guildmaster sighs heavily and says, "I can't lose my newbies. It seems like an urgent situation, so I'll go myself." We are transported to the center of the city, where ordinary people and journalists are crowded around a huge portal. Security won't let anyone get close. Journalists notice that representatives of one famous guild are approaching them. All cameras immediately turn towards the very three people who were talking in the office a while ago. Everyone is interested in the current rumors and the situation with the request for cooperation between the two guilds. The guild leader is then greeted by a girl who greets him with an extremely excited voice. "Thank you for coming. I didn't know that you would come yourself." Guildmaster Yoon, he gets straight to the point and asks her about the current situation. The girl continues, "The attack team members WHO went in are 6 hunters, 2 supports, and 1 helper. They all have higher than the required qualifications, but those numbers are meaningless, seeing as the dungeon has been reanalyzed as a C-rank dungeon." The guildmaster asks the girl her next question. "How long has it been since the attack team entered?" The girl quickly answers him, "Around 2 hours. "That's a long time," notes the guildmaster. "I don't know how many people are still alive, but I'll do what I can." The girl respectfully thanks him for his willingness to look into the situation. Together they stand at the entrance to the portal. A large suitcase is on the floor and the girl is ready to take out something interesting from her purse at the request of her boss. The guildmaster seems to be up to something. He holds out his hand and at the same time a large-sized sword appears from the girl's purse. The girl's name is Minimum B Rank Support, Class Subspace Opener. The secretary of the Overkill Guilds has the ability to create a subspace inside of places that are covered and closed off. She hands the sword to her superior. Full of determination and courage, with a confident look, the guildmaster takes the first fiery swing of his sword. Skill Trespass. He slices the portal in half with his strike. A skill where, by forcefully pushing your way into the racks of mana, one can knock down any wall in the form of barriers, including gates. However, when moving into another dimension, the trespass skill only works on the user. The girl tells him to be careful and holds out another sword. The guild leader goes inside while the others stand back and watch. A grim picture appears before the guild leader's eyes. The smell of the recent battle can still be smelled in the room. The remains of monsters are scattered everywhere. There was complete chaos and death was flying through the air at the speed of light. The guild head notes that since the temperature and humidity here is so high, it must be a reptilian monster. Seeing how there are no pollutants on the floor, it's a monster with some level of intelligence and thoughts. And considering the rank of the dungeon, the answer is simple. Lizard Man, and quite old ones at that. Lizard Man. Danger level D, a reptile human monster that lives in groups of tribal units. Compared to the other human-type monsters, they have a considerably longer life, and their lifespan, intelligence, and fighting power are proportionate. You can guess the size of the group and their fighting power by looking at the corpses of the lizard men, and also the level of the distress party that was identified in the preliminary report. They might all be dead by now. The guild leader thought. I couldn't help but think of the worst-case scenario. But when I arrived at the location of the party, what I saw in front of my eyes was something I never could have expected. With great surprise, the guild leader discovers that the battle between our heroes and the huge lizards is still going on. Sharp swords and arrows are flying towards the monsters, and the agility and strength of the team is amazing. One by one, they kill the monsters, but others immediately appear as if out of nowhere. The guild leader continues his analysis of the situation. Judging from their movements and speed, the lizard men are way stronger. If so, the difference it's not too late. At this time, terrifying sword strikes and violent energy blasts fill the surroundings in this battle of man and monster. One of the members of the group is about to be defeated, and the evil monster has already swung his sword. But in the distance, we see our protagonist running to the aid of his friend to save his colleague from the dirty claws of the reptile. Magic intervenes, and the head of the guild notes to himself that this kind of weapon he did not expect to see here. In front of him, our protagonist appears at full height, with blue mana coming out of his hands, and his head burning so brightly that their glow is visible even in this semi-darkness of the dungeon. Their gazes cross and they notice each other's presence. Meanwhile, the active phase of the battle continues, and the fight doesn't even think of subsiding. Our protagonist is trying to count the number of monsters that are fighting the warriors at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. He notes that there are only 10 of them now, although he remembers exactly that the total number of monsters was only 9 pieces. The guild leader asks him with undisguised irritation in his voice what he's doing here, instead of actually helping them in the battle. In the next second, a powerful sword strike throws the warrior aside a great distance, hitting the ground loudly. He discovers for himself that this time it was truly painful. The ferocious beast tries to finish the job and swings his sword for a crushing blow. Just then, a mage appears beside his colleague in time to take care of his friend and save him from the evil monster. At that moment, the guild leader uses his powers, and everything around him lights up with a bright white light. Our protagonist notes to himself that he didn't expect to see such a weapon on the guild leader. With his pickaxe on his shoulder, he turns to watch the events unfold. With a swift rush forward, the guild leader blocks the monster's strike on the warrior lying on the ground. A flash of fire illuminates the surroundings as the two swords make contact. The guild leader commands the mage to pull the warrior away while he fights the monster himself. They thank him and move away to a safe distance. The guild leader's next sword strike knocks the weapon out of the monster's hands, and then the guild leader delivers a series of blows so fast that the monster has no time to react. The monster is defeated, and a green-colored liquid flows from its wounds, confidently demonstrating to the others that the monster on the castle is not a threat. The guild leader turns his back to it and looks ahead at our team. He states, "I haven't even used my strength to my fullest potential yet. Sure, it's a B-grade weapon, but it's just too weak." But another monster is already rushing towards him with great speed, swinging his sword and ready to avenge the fallen lizard of his monster brigade. In the next second, the guild leader's sword strikes the wild beast with a terrifying swift blow. There is a moment of silence and a pause in the current battle. So the two heroes decide to discuss the situation. Our hero asks the guild leader a question. Does this happen every time with a weapon when he uses his abilities? Because the weapon doesn't last long and gets destroyed. To which the guild leader ironically asks a counter question if our protagonist is looking for trouble. But the next second the guild leader's face lights up with a blue light, and he watches in amazement as a brand new blade appears in front of his nose. "Take it," says our hero, and as if to hold the sword forward through the air. The guild leader notes that the sword came out of nowhere, literally from a couple of magical gestures. A weapon maker, not just an average one. He's extremely competent and skilled. But then how come he's acting as a helper? I have heard of low-grade supporters who are low on money who act as helpers quite often. But the guild leader's thoughts are interrupted by our hero's words. However, there's a condition. After you clear and leave the dungeon, you must forget everything about my skills and me. To which the guild leader replies that it is not easy to forget what he has just seen. The sword disappears into thin air, and the protagonist says with a frustrated voice, "If you don't want it, go ahead and smash all your high-class weapons." Inwardly, the guild leader ponders again and agrees to the terms. All the while, the ferocious monsters continue to attack our team of heroes. In the next instant, the guild leader attacked the monster in a swift jump. The monster had already prepared to repel the blow. The two swords clashed in a deafening fiery blast. The guild leader makes another attempt, and his sword is still intact, while the monster's weapon is shattered to pieces. In his thoughts, the guild leader is contemplating what's going on. I was only planning on deflecting the attack. The opponent's weapon got smashed first. My control over the weapon was way more than usual yet. Is the weapon itself just remarkably strong? The weapon maker who can manifest a weapon that's at least over B grade on the spot? At this moment, he is distracted by the monster, who now has another weapon in his hands and is swinging for another strike. With a decisive rush forward, the guild leader delivers a devastating blow to the monster, and the whole area is illuminated by swirls of blinding energy. Jumping over the monster from its back, the guild leader swings his fire blade. For the final blow, he plunges his sword deep into the monster, causing it to roar at the top of its voice throughout the dungeon. Streams of green liquid fountain out of its mouth. The monster is destroyed. The guild leader notes that there is not a scratch on the blade. At this time, the joyous team members run up to him and thank him. The guild leader is happy to note that none of the team members are injured. Meanwhile, our hero collects mana crystals, while the other members of the team discuss the past battle and the participation of the mysterious guy. Thanks to that person there, they managed to hold out. The guild leader turns towards our hero to ask his name. He replies, "What's the point in learning the name of a mere helper?" The guild leader explains to him that they must address each other somehow, and he tells him his name. The protagonist, after some thought, stands up and says his own. "I'll leave the mana stones at the gate entrance," the protagonist offered. The guild leader stopped him and offered to go with him to the boss. He continued his thought. "This dungeon has already turned into an error dungeon. That means if we don't defeat the boss, no one can get out, whether they're a helper or a supporter. As you saw before, no weapon can completely endure my skills. Isn't it pointless if I smash the weapon you made for me?" To which our protagonist replied that it was simply impossible that the weapon he created would be damaged in any way in battle. But the guild leader corrected him. "That's what you think. This is a class error dungeon. Creatures that inhabit this place are monsters far beyond the average lizard man. And if the boss lurking in there is the same, no amount of caution we take would be excessive." The protagonist sighed in surprise at those words. He agreed to leave his belongings behind and move forward with the guild leader. There were only occasional faint lights from the fading torches on the walls. It was as if a separate entrance had been hung with them on purpose, right in the middle of this huge hall with a cold stone floor. A rustle and a light hissing sounded somewhere in the depths of this dark hole. Our heroes stopped their pacing and began to listen intently to the rolling noise, which gradually crept up on them with the slight vibration of paws clattering on the floor. Suddenly before them appeared exactly him, the most important monster of this dungeon. Lizard King, danger level C+. The final form reached by a lizard man after more than a century of survival and shedding. Despite its small size, its strength and speed are many times that of a normal lizard man. It would be better for them to ignore any of the already existing danger levels and information they have. With a smile on his face, the guild leader suggested to get this monster over with quickly. In his opinion, if they delayed, they risked losing another blade that might just break in half. To which our protagonist slightly angrily noted once again that such a thing is simply impossible. If you can't trust it, just test it out, he added. Anticipating the final battle, the monster bared his snow-white fangs and smiled broadly. The next second he commanded his faithful reptile to attack. With a look of anger and rage in his red eyes, the beast lunged forward to attack. Our heroes didn't stand still either, and were ready for this battle. They jumped forward to face the final battle in this dungeon. The guild leader's eyes turned bright orange and he swung his new sword to strike. The beast froze for a second and then let out a roar of deafening intensity. The guild leader covered himself with his sword and reflected the sound wave. It was noticeable that this beast was powered by the mana crystals. It was dotted all over its body. The guild leader once again gathered himself and tensed all the muscles in his body to make a powerful leap forward. In the next second, the main monster also jumped forward with its long and sharp spear. The ringing of steel and fiery sparks flew in all directions after their weapons made contact. Their gazes crossed and it was not clear which one of them was stronger at the moment. They bounced off each other like basketballs, only to fight again a moment later. The main monster saddled his beast, whose exhalations were like tongues of hot flames. Standing on the back of his beast, the monster gave a command to it, and huge flames of great heat flew towards the guild leader. His sword defense was obviously not enough, so at the same second a large shield appeared in front of his eyes, which protected him from the thermal burn. Our protagonist entered the battle. Strongly angered that his fiery roar had no result, the beast leaped forward and knocked the guild head off his feet. "Weren't you a weapon maker?" he asked the protagonist. "A shield can also become a weapon," he answered. The head of the guild could ask our hero a lot of things, but for now the fight is not over yet. The main monster in its typical manner decides to show a new and unexpected surprise. A knife flying on a long chain pierces the air with a whistling sound. Rings of steel coil around the sword. This trick serves its purpose to wrest his weapon from the guild leader's hands. But he wastes no time in rushing forward at the snarling beast. "Stop playing around and fight properly," declared our protagonist. In a flash, the guild leader's new sword appears in his hand and he rushes to attack. His old sword disappears as suddenly as it appeared. With stunning speed, he delivers a couple of blows that split the jaws of the wild beast. The main monster is clearly not happy with what it has seen. In the next second, a sword flies at him. The monster barely manages to dodge. They came close again. Only this time the initiative is definitely on the guild leader's side. Without wasting a second, the guild leader gives the monster a powerful kick in the stomach, which makes him fly away, losing his weapon. After hitting the ground, the monster has no time to regain consciousness, but the guild leader is already flying towards it for another strike. He takes a swing, while the monster just sits on the floor without any movement or plans. A crushing blow with swirls of fire illuminates the dungeon, after which the monster loses his left arm. His gaze falls on the figure behind him, all this time watching from the depths of the dungeon. He grabs his spear and runs swiftly towards our hero. The impact of his spear stops against an invisible barrier of mana wall. The monster clearly wasn't expecting that. "Who do you think you're pointing a weapon at?" With his leadership stance and bright blue eyes glowing brilliantly, our hero confidently utters his question. At the same time, the guild leader, determined to finish the job, approaches the enemy from behind. The monster's face reflects the severity of the current battle. We are transported back to the city, where reporters and mere spectators are standing frozen by an open red portal. "It's opening," shouted the people in the crowd. The portal began to change its color to blue. Our warriors began to emerge from it. A buzz of voices filled the square. Everyone was curious to know if they had managed to clear the dungeon, how many wounded, what loot they had brought with them. The reporters rushed towards the guild head and pelted him with their questions as usual. An office employee asked him if he was all right, while the team members once again thanked him for the trek. Our protagonist handed over the bag of crystals to one of the office staff. He was about to leave because he had already received his payment in advance. Taking one last glance in the direction of the cheering crowd, he turned around and left. A bit confused, the guild leader gave an interview. He wanted to say that there was someone else besides him, but when he turned around, he didn't find the guy who had helped the entire team survive. The team members, as if not realizing what had happened, were telling the reporters about the broken weapons. So the guild leader rushed to one of them and shook him by the shoulders, telling him that it was all thanks to the guy who made the weapons for them. Everyone began to look at each other. It seemed that no one seriously understood who they were talking about, and that such a person could have such abilities. The team members were confused because they wouldn't recall the pickaxe thanks to which our hero managed to collect all the mana crystals. A cold sweat ran down the guild leader's back. Unpleasant thoughts began to appear in his head. They all received weapons from him, so why does it seem like they forgot? Rental pay. How did that person use a skill exclusive to a rank or higher makers? The office staff knew something was wrong because their boss's behavior was disturbing. Before they could figure out what was wrong, the head of the guild, like a bullet, ran over the horizon in search of our hero. When he came to the place where he thought our hero might be, he found no one. Naturally, the guy with the pickaxe who had helped them in the dungeon had already left. The guild leader stopped to take a breath and catch his breath. The members of his office had already approached him, while our hero stood calmly somewhere in the distance. "I want you to find me someone," the guild leader gave the order. Meanwhile, at the guild headquarters, "I've found Shin Junso's location. This is the guild head secretary speaking," she continued. "Around 1 o'clock today, for a 5-member party, he entered a D-rank dungeon around Songpa GU. Good work. If it's Songpa GU, it's not too far." In a voice he praised her. His secretary waited patiently for her moment to ask a question. "Guildmaster, there's something I want to ask. Junso is just a D-ranked maker, so why are you interested in him?" Guildmaster answers. "Is that what it seems like to you, Hisu? A D-ranked maker, of course, they can't think otherwise. His status background. Since all the information is saying that he's a D-rank. But rental pay, that skill alone refutes all of that. Now we'll find out what it is. Rental pay. Rank A in payment of materializing and lending an object can compel a request to the lender. The scope and compulsion of the request depend on the user's skillfulness. The skillfulness of rental pay was high, and I've never seen anyone use it like that. An ability that could lead to great fortune is being used only to hide his identity?" The guild leader continued to think aloud about the situation in the dungeon. "A weapon maker like that could easily achieve a level like this. Well, I'll be able to know when I meet him again." The guild leader lowered his gaze to his hand and imagined that he had the hilt of the sword that our hero had created in his fist. That time, "I've never felt something like that. I could finally use my full power without worrying about the weapon breaking." He continued his story. "I've met countless blacksmiths referred to as the greatest blacksmith." In his thoughts, he returned to the workshop of the talented blacksmith who had forged a magnificent blade for him. This strong man had shown him the best of the weapons he had. Even the armorer had not expected to see his weapon transformed into a flaming sword by the talent of the guild leader. And each such sword went through many battles and fights, in which different monsters were defeated. But none of the blades could withstand the tests and were always destroyed, which caused the anger and rage of every next armor maker. Not to mention, the creation ability of makers is limited to the form of normal weapons, but the weapons that he created largely exceeded that of the limitations of abilities and forms, as if such limitations didn't exist in the first place. If it's Junso's abilities, it might be possible. That, which I couldn't use because I didn't have a proper weapon. Leaning against the large wooden table, he exhaled and finished speaking. The clear time of usual D-rank dungeons being cleared by a 5-member party is around 4 hours. There's around 1 hour left, he continued, turning to his assistant. "Hisu, what schedule is left today?" "At 7 p.m. you have a meeting with a guild master Hyunmu." The girl replied, "Please cancel the meeting. I'm going to go ahead of time. I want to avoid any possibility of missing him," said the chief as he was about to leave his large office. Meanwhile, in yet another dark dungeon full of ferocious monsters, another savage monster was struck down by an arrow and a sword, its weapon broken and its body chopped in many places. A man in perfect armor froze in a fighting pose, while his long sword didn't have a scratch. "No way, this is really a weapon a helper made?" He asked himself that question with surprise. If this much mana could destroy the boss's weapon, this must have C rank, no, at least a B rank quality. He couldn't stop being amazed at what he saw. "When my weapon broke into two, I thought we were all done for. But to think the guy who entered as a helper had an ability like this, it's amazing. Simply amazing. I've never seen a sword of this quality before. Thank you so much, helper friend." The knight finished speaking emotionally, while our hero with the bag headed towards the mana crystals to collect them. The man in armor turned to one of his team members and said, "If you don't have a guild, should we recruit him?" To which the girl replied that it was a great idea. They continued to discuss the protagonist, saying that he didn't deserve to be just a helper. As if not listening to their cheering, our hero was thinking about something else. I've used more mana than I expected. To think I'd meet a party that would struggle like this even though it's not an error dungeon. If I had just had mana left that time it wouldn't have been like this. The incredible amount of mana I felt inside the dungeon before. After defeating the golem and using it all, it never reappeared. Our protagonist continued his thought process and conversation within himself. What I feel now is no better than a D-ranked awakener's mana, but it's a relief that there's no big trouble when creating weapons. To think my past life's memories would help me like this. A mana pickaxe appeared in front of his blue eyes out of nowhere. The maker's basic skill, creating, which helps when making a specific object, although it's a very intuitive skill where the quality is proportionate to the mana used. There's one other method that can help raise the performance of this skill that isn't yet known. That's the level of understanding. Type, sword. Manufacture method, heat metal. The higher the level of understanding of the object being created is, the higher the quality is. The best point of this ability is that as the quality rises, the mana's efficiency also rises. So even if you use the same mana and create the same object based on the level of understanding, there is a meaningful difference in quality. And after that hidden ability was revealed, I remember undergoing harsh training, material research, receiving training from a hunter as a support, going into the workshop and receiving weapon creating lessons. But the feeling I get is more than I expected. After these thoughts, he slammed the pickaxe against a rock with all his might. I don't know how much better it's gotten exactly, but in comparison to the mana being used, this level of quality isn't just additional. But it's true that it's still lacking. He bent forward to collect another large mana crystal. It's hard to use both creating and rental pay. Mana-related equipment is expensive, so there's no way I can get them right now. I can at least get mana potions. It's the only mana-related item that can be mass-produced. He could barely fit another crystal in his bag. I should order some more potions. Although with a helper pay, it's still a struggle. A screen appeared before his eyes. But no one will accept a D-ranked maker as a support, so I have no choice. But the results are good, so it's a relief. Passive skill, mana absorption. The system showed him a notification. You are absorbing and accumulating the polluted mana's energy from the dungeon. When the accumulated mana hits the fixed amount, you will receive a new reward. There's only a bit left until mana absorption hits its accumulation goal. There's around 20% left. A few dungeon clears won't be enough. He continued his musings. One dungeon clear is only a bit more than 1% of mana. The efficiency is too low. Then the only remaining method is to enter a rank error dungeon. In order to absorb a lot of mana at once, this is the only method. Compared to other dungeons, there are several times more mana absorption. And there's a place I've been looking into. The problem is that before I enter, I can't predict the difficulty of the rank error dungeon. The previous error dungeon would have been difficult if that person wasn't there. I need to guess that they're AC ranked boss, and prepare for that. The only method to grow as someone with a D-ranked awakener identity as of now is to check the reward for mana absorption. After that, the protagonist picked up the bag of crystals and headed for the exit. In their usual manner, the players went through the portal into the city and said goodbye to each other. No one noticed our hero, and he noted to himself that his technique had fully worked, and all their memories had been erased. Just as suddenly someone called his name, and a cold fast ran down his back. He turned around and saw the head of the guild who was happily rushing towards him. "Do you remember me?" he said. The protagonist looked at him silently, unable to utter a word out of surprise. His magic didn't work. After a while, the hero came to his senses and hesitantly said, "Will you believe me if I say I don't?" Immediately followed by a short and confident answer of the guild leader. "Nope." He handed him his card. "So what business do you have with me?" As if not realizing what was going on, the protagonist continued to ask his ridiculous questions. "I have something to talk to you about." "Please, give me some time," said the guild leader. The protagonist looked at the business card and saw the name of the guild. The Overkill Guild. It's one of Korea's top 3 guilds. The protagonist kept looking at the business card, as if trying to find something new in it, though at the same time the thoughts in his head were changing one after another. I can't get involved in such a big guild yet. I should give an excuse and get away. Finally, he found nothing better to say and said a short sentence, after which he turned around and left. "I have no time. I have a prior dinner appointment." Before he could take a step, the guild leader's hand fell on his shoulder and stopped his movement. "You won't regret this conversation." Ignoring his amusing excuse, the guild leader said, "I won't take much time. and dinner will be on me. All the while his assistant was looking at the protagonist with her hands clenched, barely containing her irritation. The protagonist turned his head from side to side, looking at the girl and the guildmaster. The position of guildmaster must give you lots of time. To think you'd have the time for a D-rank supporter, he said to the man across from him. Let's say that's true. The man replied briefly and with a smirk. Our hero thought for a moment. I don't like it, but I need to confirm how much of rental pay has worked on him. Finally he said, as if doing them a favor. Fine, then just for a little while. The guild leader smiled widely. Sure, no problem, said the guild leader in response. After that, the protagonist once again turned around and quickly walked away, leaving the guild leader and his assistant behind. Meanwhile, in one of the city's most expensive restaurants, 3 men sat at a table. The guild leader, his assistant secretary, and our protagonist. So then, what business does the guild master of the Overkill Guild have with a D-ranked supporter like me? He asked the guild leader. I doubt it's because you have a lot of time and wanted to do some small talk with me. The guild leader replies, as you have seen, my class is Berserker. As much as I have overwhelming attack power, there is the limit of needing a weapon that can withstand the load. So the most important work for Berserker is to find a supplier of weaponry that matches with them. Of course, I've been to countless places to fulfill this goal, within the country, outside the country, starting from blacksmiths called the top of their field and a few weapon makers, and if there seemed to be even the slightest of possibility, I would commission weapons with no concern for time or money. However, every weapon I've had until now could not withstand my full abilities. At this point, he covered his eyes and lowered his head forward slightly. There has only been one exception, which is the sword you, Shin created. Our protagonist was thinking is his head. One thing for sure, rental pay didn't work on him at all. I didn't think there was a nullification style skill in the Berserker class. I was careless. I need to be careful when using it on higher level hunters. The guild leader continues, let me be straightforward. Would you like to join my guild? Her assistant did not expect such a question from the guild leader and opened her mouth in surprise. I already know that you are not a part of any other guild. If you come to my guild, I promise you will receive the best treatment. We will give you a contracting fee of 10 billion won. We will also pay you separately for your operation expenses and dividends. The contracting time will be 1 year, and every time we extend it we will raise the contracting fee by 10%. The exit details will be in the contract. I am sorry, the protagonist interrupted him, but I don't plan on joining a guild right now. I will have to refuse. Then, if you have nothing else to talk about, I will take my leave. Thank you for your food. After which he got up from the table and prepared to leave. Shin. The guild leader called his name loudly, but he didn't even turn around. Guildmaster, why did you make an offer like that? With surprise in her voice, the girl questioned the guild leader, resenting such generosity. There is no way you made that kind of offer without a reason. But still, those conditions were too Minhisu. He interrupted here before she could finish. If you had experienced what I did at that moment, you wouldn't be able to talk like that. It had been a while, you see, since the scream of the weapon didn't reach my fingertips. With that weapon, it felt like it could take all I had, and actually withstand it, but still, of course, it wasn't just because of that sensual feeling. What do you think the total sum of all of the high-level weapons I've ruined in 1 year is? Taking another sip, he turned to the girl with a question. Yeah. The expenses the guildmaster uses on weapons is definitely astronomical. She was surprised to discover in her thoughts, regardless of them getting destroyed from not being able to withstand the pressure. If it isn't above the searching rank, the guildmaster's abilities won't even be able to release. And then she thought it over and she said, yeah, if that was possible, then the contracting fee you offered would be nothing at all. However, the problem until now is that nobody's been able to do that, including everyone who's been called the best in the field. The fact that man has that ability he does for sure. The guild leader said confidently because he had seen it with his own eyes. That's why he continues. Regardless of what I have to over him, I want to recruit him at all costs. We are transported to a city where our protagonist is walking down the street and thinking about what just happened at the restaurant. To think the day would come where I would reject a scout offer from a top 3 guild. Overkill Guild and Yoon Taeyeon, it would definitely be a big help, but it's too early right now. Well, it's okay. Let's wait patiently. He will come find me again for sure. Calming himself down, our protagonist finished his thought analysis. Meanwhile, in another dungeon where there was a troubled battle and many monsters died, interesting events are unfolding. With horror in his eyes, a man with a sword in his hands finds his fellow guild members killed by an unknown warrior. "Who are you?" With all the severity in his voice he addresses the stranger. And the unknown warrior replies, "This is quite memorable. At this point, usually people are whining and begging to save them while losing consciousness. Is the person who will become a hero different?" We see a horrible picture of the death of one of the warriors, with a blue-haired stranger standing next to him. "Why so suddenly?" With a tremor in his voice, the sword-wielding warrior addressed his stranger. "Are you trying to kill us and take all of the trophies?" To which the stranger with the huge sword replied, "It's not because of such a boring reason, but I don't want to tell you. I think it will be just a waste of my energy to explain to someone who is about to die. But I will tell you if you defeat me." He clenched his sword tighter in his hands and prepared to strike. "So, hurry up and come at me if you don't want to die." With a mocking tone in his voice, the warrior stranger uttered, "He is not an easy opponent. From an ambiguous distance I will die." The warrior was thinking in his head. Then he moved forward to attack without finishing his mental dialogue. "I need to go in with the resolve to lose a leg or arm." The swords crossed and blinding flash of metal lit up the stranger's face with a slight smirk. One by one our warrior tried to damage the stranger, but he easily repelled all attacks. The stranger made a special move to wrest the sword from our warrior's hands. The sword of the warrior swiftly whirled upward. Taking advantage of this moment, the stranger rushed forward to finish the attack. Kneeling without a weapon, the warrior could not believe his eyes that this is how he was about to end his life of utter disappointment. Walking leisurely toward our warrior, the stranger said, "I volunteered in excitement because it was the first hero-ranked subjugation in a year, but to think you would be such a small fry. But still, the bravery it took to run in is commendable." Looking up from below, kneeling on her knees with tears in her eyes, the warrior begged for mercy. With a smirk on his face, the stranger swung the sword without even a thought of mercy. He shouted, "I will send you off cleanly." After his words, he struck a crushing blow and cut the warrior's life short. The smell of death filled the dungeon, and here and there was scattered the bodies of warriors and monsters who had fallen in this battle. "Damn it, I thought I would get to fight for the first time in a while." The unknown warrior continues, "It wasn't even good enough as a warm-up." He is donning an unfair expression. The stranger looked into the eyes of the fallen warrior and said mockingly, "Don't worry, it will be reported that you fought violently against the boss and died heroically." With joy in the voice, he took a picture on his cell phone. Nice. He was happily looking at the pictures of fallen heroes he had on his phone. "My collection has increased," he continues. "I leave for collecting." But something suddenly interrupted his monologue and he stopped. "I hate feeling that shitty energy. So either hide it or at least make it obvious when you are coming in." Turning to the priestess who suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Sorry. I came in a push because I heard there was precious ingredients," said a beautiful-looking priestess in expensive attire with a gemstone pendant around her neck, radiating energy all around here. The unknown warrior replied, "What precious ingredients? They were all idiots. That's why I said not to listen to that person and to wait a bit." To which she replied, "Those words." And she continued, "Are you saying that you want to go against the wishes of that person, the executor? Ha, sensitive bastards. I'm just saying, just clean things up well." Turning his back to the priestess, the stranger gave her the request. "Yeah, leave it to me, this is my specialty." Starting her magic, she replied. "And don't forget the promise," he continued, "that you will let me go against an S-ranked hunter. That promise is the only reason I'm hanging out with you. Because of this damned consciousness or whatever, I have to cleanly kill them. And I haven't been able to use my power properly." She interrupted him. Yes, don't worry, I will contact you soon." "Okay, who will come out this time?" With joy in her voice, the priestess said and turned the corpse of the dead warrior into a monster. Like a little girl seeing a new doll for the first time, she was excited about her new monster. What that person said wasn't wrong. An ominous-looking humanoid monster appeared before her eyes, clanking its scary white teeth. Meanwhile, about to embark on a new dungeon, our hero discovers that a friend he knows has come to visit him. It was the head of the guild. He could only be recognized by his suitcase, otherwise he looked like an ordinary guy from the street. A mask was on his face to hide his identity. "Why are you here?" our protagonist asked the question with a surprise. To which the guild leader replied, "You have a good eye recognizing me right away. There is only one person who I know that carries around a weapon case like that. So why are you here?" the main hero continued. To attack the gate, of course, the guildmaster replied. At D rank 8? The hero interrupted him. The guild member that was supposed to go in suddenly got sick. I'm here as their sub. Our hero understood the guild leader's idea perfectly well, but he interrupted him and said that there was no time. It's time, let's go. The guild leader commanded. I knew he would come, but this quickly? Oh well, I'll need to adjust my plan, the hero was thinking in his head. Our heroes entered another dungeon. With a confident gait without looking around, they went forward in search of new monsters. The head of the guild turned to our hero and asked him a question. Why won't you join the guild? To which our hero replied, I already rejected the offer. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Looking away with a slight irritation in his voice, our hero said, meanwhile, the two guild representatives were discussing the latest rumors. Did you hear about the auction of the C-ranked gate this morning in Chuncheon? Yeah, I heard. The girl replied. This discussion did not unnoticed by our hero, who was aware of the situation. I heard the Hyunmu guild got it in one go. The man continues, yeah, my friend was there. I heard they told such a high price that nobody could take action. The girl replied, the Hyunmu guild bought a C-ranked gate. Did they find something while discussing these rumors? Our hero stopped and listened to what caught the attention of the guild leader, and he asked the protagonist, are you interested in buying gates? If you come to our guild, I can easily purchase special gates above B rank. Not backing down from his intentions to recruit our hero, the guild leader continued to make his recruitment offers, since they're silent privileges afforded to us through guild name alone. To awakens, the name of your guild is quite important. You can receive the envy and adoration of the public, and not only receive other jobs, but incomparable revenue and rewards compared to other awakeners. Outside of that, with your vested rights, you can get claims to countless things. In the case of high special gates, for example, you can get an interest ticket. There is a big influence by not just talent, but its dynamic relationship with politics, and the structure makes it so that the rare treasures you can earn through those places are sized naturally by the big guilds. You must have a goal you are working towards as an awakener. Shin Junso. No matter what that is, with the backing of Overkill Guild, it will be easy for you to achieve it. I don't really understand why you are rejecting like that. The protagonist replied angrily, exhaling in an annoyed voice. It's none of your business, he continued, and I vaguely know why you are doing this, since there has probably never been anyone who has rejected a scouting author from the Overkill Guild. So let me make this clear. It doesn't matter what, I won't enter any guild. The guild leader clearly did not expect such a response after his generous offer. His eyes widened in surprise. An awkward pause hung in the air in this gloomy dungeon of foul air. Is this due to the trauma he has from the annihilation of the Dawen Guild, I read in the report? Or could there be something else? The guild leader was thinking in his head. Regardless of why, I can't give up. Deeper and deeper our heroes went into this gloomy dungeon, and the wizard and his staff lead their way. The guild leader's head got tangled up in something, and one of the team members explained to him that it was the web of big spiders. Okay, from here on out is the monster's territory. An experienced warrior with a shield explained. It seems all your hunters are noobs, so I'll quickly brief you. Although I'm sure you all got the reconnaissance report. The monsters that appear here are Legion Spider. The level of the difficulty for each entity is low. Some special features include that they live in groups, but according to the results of the reconnaissance, there are approximately 50 of them. That's not a lot. They have paralysis poison in their fangs, so be careful not to be beaten. After hearing these words, the guild leader sat down, opened his suitcase and pulled out his sword. They will come soon, he said. Stick close to me, to which our hero replied, don't worry on the helper and just prepare to fight. All combatants must protect the team's supports and helpers. That is the rule that must be followed by hunters, regardless of ability and situation, whether you want me to or not, that is. Before the guild leader could finish his speech, the man with the shield shouted loudly, They are coming. In the next second, the increasing rumble of movement of a large number of spiders startled some of the newcomers. A large spider with red eyes appeared right in the front of our heroes. We can beat them as long as we do as we learned. Calming their newcomers down, the band leader said. Legion Spider. The danger level changes according to the size of the legion. Determined to repel the attack, our heroes took a fighting stance. A huge number of spiders with poisonous stings rushed forward right in them. The first blow with the sword split some spiders in half and a huge amount of green liquid flew around. The man with the sword activating his defense, making a big shield, while the magician illuminated everything around with a bright white light. Powerful discharges of lightning struck directly at the spiders. The teammates strike one after another and acted as a single organism. The third blow of the sword cut some of the spiders in half. Not bad for a D rank. I won't have to worry about them. Analyzing the situation from the outside, noted the head of the guild. But the number of spiders was so large that it surprised even our hero. I don't think this is just a few dozen spiders, he was thinking in his head. The spiders picked up very close to the guild leader. After that, he activated his abilities, and his sword light up like bright flames. One by one he struck the spiders, and they flew away, slain and burning like coals in a fire. Each legion spider's durability is quite low, even among the ranked monsters. Even if you don't use the blade itself, all you have to do is release a bit of sword energy. At this rate, I will be able to finish this raid without losing a weapon. The guild leader's thoughts were interrupted by a scream of help. A huge number of monsters surrounded the 3 team members. The man with the shield noted that there were clearly more than 50 of them. The intelligence report was wrong. The spiders continued to arrive. The man with the shield said it would be a very hard fight, and the girl said she was at mana limit. The guild leader rushed to the aid of his colleagues who were in trouble. He turned to our hero to call out to him, but he turned around and walked away in other direction. Go ahead and help them. I will finish things here and follow you, he shouted. At this time the guild leader discovered that the hero was walking right into the midst of the spiders. With a quick leap forward he rushed to his aid, but the next second our hero stopped as if meditating. His eyes became large, and in them you could see a blue net. Everything around him looked like one big web with spiders moving around in it. And then with one look he sliced the spider in half with blue energy. The guild leader froze in surprise because he'd never seen anything like this before. Of the weapons I can make right now, the one with the greatest workmanship is a sword. It would be most effective to summon multiple swords and pour it all in. It's impossible with the amount of mana I have right now. If so, there is nothing better than this. Pondering his choice, the hero reached for the screen with his index finger, after which a sword of energy appeared around him. He looked at the spiders as if to set the direction of the next strike, and with a twist of his finger the sword flew exactly there. The impact was so strong that the spiders were thrown aside. With a single wave of his index finger, our hero set the direction of his energy sword, which crushed all the spiders around him. With astonishing and tremendous speed, this sword of energy flew all around, smashing every spider to shreds. During this time the guild leader did not even move from his seat, continuing to observe the amazing and unprecedented battle picture, also standing confidently in his place. Our hero was surrounded by fallen spiders, and it was clear from his gaze that this fight was over. With great interest, the guild leader looked at the gradually disappearing magical sword of our hero. He noted to himself that it was a one-time attack over a large area. The time required in battle is at least 10 seconds. He dealt with all of the dozens of legion spiders in that time. He used materialization in battle. No, him being a talented sport who can't fight in the first place. The guild leader was thinking in his head, and our hero interrupted his thoughts. What are you doing? Aren't you going to help? To go to help them? The guild leader was horrified to discover that he had forgotten how 3 members of his guild were still surrounded by spiders. The situation doesn't look very good. We will talk properly after things get resolved, confidently said the guild leader, after which swung his sword and rushed to the attack. Our hero barely had time to ask him to sort it out and explain the situation to everyone else because people won't believe what happened. The guild leader's eyes lit up with a bright yellow firelight, and his body radiating energy. With a good kick of his foot, he leapt forward to deliver his first blow. The barely audible approval of our hero's request came from his lips. We survived because of you. Thank you, said the man with the shield. He turned his head toward the guild leader. He continued, but I was quite surprised. I thought you looked similar at the beginning, but who knew you would really be the guild master of the Overkill Guild? To which the guild master replied, I apologize for not telling you in advance. I came to quietly investigate the dungeon. Without hiding her surprise and gratitude, the pink-haired girl interrupted their conversation. Apologize, we survived thanks to you. Seeing you deal with the spiders in one go was so cool. Would be able to take a picture with you when, before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by one of the team members. I'm back, he said. All but the guild leader turned towards 2 guys with some displeasure. The girl with pink hair was especially upset. This was an opportunity for her to get to know the guild leader better. Our hero did not return alone. With him was one of the crew who was holding an old kerosene lamp. Sorry for being late, we started collecting the byproducts while we were at it. The boy continued, after going around it seems there are no other monsters in this area. Also there is another pathway right out front. I think we can go deeper. To which the man with the shield interrupted him. A path. I don't think we can continue this dungeon anymore. It's unfortunate, but let's stop the raid here. The young man with the lamp didn't understand the reason for their rejection. Pardon, but there is not much left. So why, the warrior with the shield explained, the number of legion spiders we saw earlier and the geography of this dungeon are all different from what I saw in the reconnaissance report. Now we can understand the logic of his response. Dungeons exist past gates, separate from our world. Dungeons are locations with bizarre creatures and geographic features cannot be seen on Earth. Right now the concepts of dungeons and awakened aren't perfectly set up. So what was most important for those who just became awakened was information about dungeons. There weren't many awakened who could adjust to the environment of dungeons they'd never experienced before, which would mean the failure of the raid and in the worst case scenario would mean death. That's how the concept of scouts came to be. And the scout jumps from the branch of a tall tree to the ground. Awakened with the ability to detect or hide their traces, gathered and started receiving dungeon reconnaissance commissions. The dungeon clear raid began to significantly rise after these reconnaissance commissions, and they began to be called scouts. In his notebook the young man writes down everything that happened here. The accuracy of the reconnaissance is usually more than 98%. To say this is just a mistake is unlikely. The man with the shield continued. We can't exclude the possibility that this is a rank error dungeon as well. A young man with a French accent interrupted our hunter. Since we have the guild master, wouldn't it be okay to continue? Pardon me, but the man with the shield was adamant. He would not be easily persuaded to continue this raid. I understand your desire to continue the raid, but receiving the guild master's help once is enough. If we are not careful, everyone could fall into danger. As if pleading, the young man continued his speech. I really want to clear this dungeon. I have my own situation. Is there no method? To which the girl continued, I feel the same. After all the explanations, the hunter with the shield still couldn't convince them. So he asked one single question. Is that reason more important than your life? Once you enter a boss room you can't go back. I don't want to either, but we should first exit and report to the association. At that moment you could see the girl and the guy shaking with fear. None of them wanted to face the big boss. I'm fine with it. The man ended his speech with this phrase, after which the guild leader continued to speak. Even if I'm here to investigate, I'm still a party member. If I can come to a conclusion through the progression with the raid, there is no reason I wouldn't have to. And if I want to investigate, I need to go into the boss room anyway. At this point he turned and looked at our hero as if counting on his support. He just stood there unwavering in his observation. Then I will shamelessly request this of you. The man with the shield made a bow toward the guild leader. Thank you so much, he added. Realizing the difficulty of further raiding the dungeon, the man with the shield wanted to hand over the lead role to the guild leader. You don't need to worry about me. Please continue to lead as we did at the start. He replied to him. Understood. Then let's be off. The hunter replied in his military manner, short and sharp. The whole group moved forward into the unknown. The darkness was so intense that the light from the lantern was barely sufficient, but something mysterious was driving them forward. Then they came upon a huge door that was closed. I think we are in front of the boss room, so I will do the final briefing. The team leader addressed his team. First, this dungeon's boss is a Legion Queen Spider with a danger level of D+. Here overall battle ability is quite low. It's considered an easy boss that mainly just breeds Legion Spiders. But that's just the original information. We don't know what organism will be behind this door. And then with great effort he pressed his hands on the door to open it. Let's head on in, he added quickly. With a great creaking and very slowly the old door was gradually opened. They walked inside the room. I don't see any particular signs, the hero was thinking. No signs at all, the hero cautiously thought to himself. But in the next second the leader of the group gave the command for everyone to prepare for battle. And a huge spider, surrounded by many small spiders, appeared right in front of them. Isn't that the queen spider we heard about in the briefing? The guildmaster said. What a relief, the boss is still the same, the girl added. The girl was the first to enter the battle. She launched a large energy ball forward. The thunder and lightning bolts illuminated everything around here. Hundreds and hundreds of electrical charges struck the spiders directly. She was almost glad she had succeeded, but in the next instant found out she had done no damage, all because the spider boss was already dead. The leader of the group noted to himself that he'd never heard of such a thing. The next second he endeavored to give an order for them to change their order, but something strange interrupted his intention. Someone or something knew of their presence and saw them with their special vision. The next second the impact of a huge claw on the ground deafened the whole place. A deafening roar echoed around them. A huge monster appeared before the eyes. Arachne, danger level B+, the queen that commands all spider-type monsters, has high intelligence and is very cunning, does not breed but trespasses into the territories of other spider-type monsters and increases legion by plundering, can share her power with the attendants that follow her. Her smiles showed the fearsome power of a ruthless monster. Our heroes were seized with ethereal known before, and cold sweat ran down the backs of some of them. For the queen, our team of heroes was as small as cockroaches. She wasted no time in striking her first blow. The guild leader reacted instantly, and blocked her blow with his sword. An Arachne to think a B-ranked monster would appear. Sloppy swordsmanship won't even leave a scratch. I need to do the most damage possible in a single blow. The guild leader then rushed to the attack, alternating his blows on the queen. The next second his sword shattered into tiny pieces. "Damn it, the weapon," he shouted loudly. The sword broke so I couldn't deliver a fatal strike. A bright flash of blue light illuminated everything around him. As if all out of nowhere, a Mana Energy's sword appeared, which was ready thanks to our hero. "Stole some time with this for now," he said aloud to the guild leader, while his eyes once again became like a large blue net. His entire body lit up with a blue aura. Surprised and amazed at what they saw, the team heroes froze in great shock. A terrifying-looking wide-toothed smile and 6 eyes, that's how the queen looked. Like she didn't care, and with a mocking grin she looked down from above. Our hero wanted to buy some time to make a new weapon for the guild leader. Suddenly our hero felt his mana reserves running low. "Did I use up all of my mana?" He remembered the last time he took a bottle of mana. "It's incredible that I lasted this long with the level my mana's at anyway. As for mana portions, I can only handle drinking 1 bottle per day. If I exceed that, the potion could be addictive. The effects are still good though. I was late, stole for some time with this for now, while I make you a proper weapon." Arachne is a B-rank high-level monster. The error boss that should have come out here is the C-ranked monarch spider, the hero was thinking. How lucky that Yoon Taeyeon joined us. It would have been difficult to face Arachne with these people, since once the danger level hits B, the level itself changes. With incredible speed, the guild leader continued to fight with the huge monster. The blows of his sword brightly flashed fire and sparks flew in different directions around him. But it felt like the queen of all spiders wasn't paying any attention to it because the guild leader hadn't been able to deal any damage to her yet, and was only defending herself from the blows. One by one she continued to deliver her blood blows, and the guild leader barely had time to defend himself with a swift swing of his sword. Its pure fighting power is equal to 5 A-rank hunters. And if you think about Arachne's ability, we can just rely on Yoon Taeyeon. The hero was thinking in his head, and he commanded, "Get up." It was an order for the crew members who hid behind his back. "You should be able to move now since Arachne's killing intent has changed targets." "Who are you?" said the man with the shield. "Why someone this talented participating as a helper? Did you come together with Guildmaster Yoon Taeyeon?" The team members bombarded our hero with their questions, making some pause in the whole happening. But our hero reminded them that there is something more important to finish first. After these words, for each of them, he created a magnificent specimen of his weaponry. "Choose," he said. The crew members froze in amazement. They had never seen such a thing before the eyes. With a smile on his face, our hero told them to finally take the weapon. "Will you grasp the weapons in front of you and reign the dungeon by defeating the spiders? Or will you run away now and wait outside until the situation ends? I trust you will be able to make a wide decision." The next second each of them hit a huge number of spiders in a new kind of weaponry. "This is incredible," said one of the crew members. "I have never held a weapon like this." Each stroke of his sword left an energy light in the air that helped him fight the spiders. His movements were very fast. "It's like I'm cutting a piece of paper." Was killing a monster this easy? He heard an advancing crackle behind him. It was lightning, with her new magical wand capable of emitting massive amounts of volts of electricity. The girl entered the fray. With great enthusiasm and joy she raised her weapon high above her head, and then thunder rumbled throughout the dungeon. The only thing that changed is the weapon. But the power of her skill increased several fold. Think the man with the shield. He was really amazed. A weapon he summoned on the spot is this good, but just who is that person finally? At this time the guild leader's sword was already covered in green liquid, which meant some blows to the Spider Queen. His clothes were all covered in the color green. He began his analysis, as expected of AB rank high-level monsters. It's a bit hard to try and buy time. By changing his battle strategy, the guild leader was able to do some damage to the Spider Queen. I need to add things as quickly as possible. With unprecedented strength he made one swift, powerful blow that severed the head of the Spider Queen. The weapon's still fine, it's better than I expected, he said to himself. But in the next second a huge number of small spiders seemed to come out of nowhere, and headed towards the queen without paying any attention to the guild leader and the rest of the team members. Where did spiders like this come from and where are they going? The girl asked. They are headed towards the guild master. The man with the shield shouted loudly. Okay, everyone back up. Did she hide the spiders? Things are getting complicated. Arachne's ability is activating. The guild leader was aware of the ability of this type of monster to be reborn somewhat through the powers and lives of other small creatures. Arachne sacrifices the spider monsters and transfers them to her own life. That means she is reborn. The next second she was standing up as if she hadn't been injured earlier. Much to the dismay of the guild leader, she will revive endlessly unless we kill all of them. I need to raise my firepower and finish things in one go. Damn it, shouted the guild leader as if something was preventing him from proceeding further. You are more amazing than I thought. The Spider Queen spoke her words for the first time. Her voice felt the incredible power of a huge turned monster. But at the same time it was frightening and uninspiring. Even if I made it with my barely remaining mana, I never thought you would really destroy a sword I made. After these words, our hero created the previously unseen weapon. It was a special sword. Please use this, he said to the guild leader. Right in front of the guild leader's eyes appeared a sword he had never seen before. It's not the single-edged sword form that you tend to use, but it's the most durable weapon that I can make right now. With a joy in his face said our hero, I felt it as soon as I grasped the sword, that with this weapon I could defeat them all in one go. The guild leader gripped the hilt of his new sword with both hands. The ground began to crack underfoot, and fiery tongues of flame burst outward. I'm definitely a bit unfamiliar with the two-handed sword format, but this seems fitting for the situation, the guild leader said with gratitude in his voice. In the next second he activated the highest level of his abilities, which made his new weapon seem to explode with tongues of flame. With the speed of a missile, he launched himself at the Spider Queen, burning her with his sword from all sides. One tremendous impact sliced her in half. Explodability. A berserker's innate skill. Our hero was happy to see what was going on. It's probably the first time Yoon Taeyeon has used this skill properly. In place of receiving overwhelming power, this skill results in the user losing their rationality. The new sword did not fail the guild leader, not a single scratch on it. He was still standing in the flames of the fire and watching the Spider Queen die, since it would have been hard to deal with the risk of all that follows after the weapon shatters.